Welcome back. Behind me is my 1952 Caterpillar D2. I recently picked this up in a previous video along with a 1948 Caterpillar D2 with a traction loader on it. When we picked it up, we had to pull start this one because the pony engine, I was told, was having issues last time it ran. There was dirt in the tank and the clutch was sticking, so we just went ahead and pull started it and we're able to get it loaded. The steering clutches were stuck, so it didn't go very smoothly, but the goal for today's video is going to be to get that pony engine running and those steering clutches loose. So let's get at it. The main issue with the starting engine, I believe, is the fuel tank and the condition it is in. It's hard to see down in there, but it is crusty and full of junk. So I'm going to pull that off, flush it out, and I've got some evapor rust that I'm going to let sit in it overnight, and hopefully that'll clean it right up. But first we got to get the hood off and see what else is holding it in. So here's what we're looking at. Looks like just a couple bolts and tank will come right off. I believe there's a rubber fuel line someone put on there. And while we're in here, I kind of seen this when I bought it. Looks like the exhaust pipe's got a couple holes in it that have been patched. I believe the earlier tanks had part of the intake would come across these, so this is pretty easy to deal with. I'm guessing this originally had a steel line on it, but someone added this rubber tubing with a filter. But I'm hoping that none of the rotten fuel got into the carburetor because the fuel valve is off. Seems like everything's pretty stuck in there and pretty crusty. It's nothing good, so let's grab that evapor rust and fill this thing up. I'm already noticing a problem here. If you've seen that prior clip, you'll notice there was something right here. I thought it was some kind of animal poop, but it was actually a hole in the tank. So that's no good. I'm not sure if there are any others. It looks like there's something right there. But I think I'm going to go ahead and give the evapor rust a try anyhow, because if that's the only hole, I could braze that shut. I'm going to go ahead and put this tank in this box here, so when it does inevitably leak all the evapor rust out, at least I don't completely lose it. I'd like to see if I could tape over those holes. Next, I'd like to see if our magneto is still producing spark. Make sure our ignition is on. Pull a plug wire. Put the spark tester in there so it has good ground. This has an electric start, but I don't have a battery handy, so we're going to go ahead and do it this way. I thought I heard a snap, but I'm not sure. Oh yeah, good spark. So we got spark. Have a little bit of compression. Up next, we got to see if we can get fuel into that carburetor. I know the tank was in bad shape, but I'm hoping it didn't make it all the way down this line and into that carburetor, but I'm going to go ahead and grab some fresh hose and see what we're looking at here. Go ahead and pull this line off and see what the fitting by the carburetor looks like. It actually looks really clean inside, so we may get lucky. Let's see if I can find a tank to temporarily mount on this. So I've got a temporary fuel tank hooked up with some fresh fuel in it and a new fuel line run to the carburetor. So we'll turn it on and see if we get fuel in there, and if it runs out or not. Tap on the bowl a couple times. Double check the oil on the pony engine. Should be good to go. Seeing a little bit of seepage around the carburetor. So we're getting fuel in there. Gonna shut that off just in case it's dumping gas down into the cylinders. Since the last time I've ran this, I've gotten a full set of manuals on it, and I realized there's oil, its own compartment in the injection pump, and in the starting clutch as well. So I've checked both of those. They both have oil sufficient for what we're doing. This is plenty full. This is a little bit low, but nothing to worry about for now. We'll do a full service later. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if we can get this pony engine to pop off. First, you gotta set the choke and the throttle. I believe all the way out on the throttle is low idle, so I'm gonna go about halfway in, and then I believe in on the choke is off and out is on, so I'm gonna pull it with the choke on. Make sure the clutch is disengaged and it's in neutral, because if it starts, I'd like to crank the big engine over and see about starting it up. That was pretty lackluster. Alright, I'm going gonna see if I can find a battery. All right, let's try that. That'll work. It's way better than pulling a rope. Couple pops. Nearly. May not have been the most graceful performance for the first pony engine start I've ever done, but it worked out. You might have saw me jump over here a little bit. The spark plug wire on that cylinder is not that great. There's actually a new set in the box that came with it, and that magneto's still pretty hot. Now we know the pony engine works. Diesel's just turning along like it did before. Well, I can't stand just watching it sit here and idle. I at least gotta walk it back and forth a couple feet. Well, the steering clutches are still frozen, but it's nice to hear it run again. Up next is the clutch and brakes on this thing. We've got to adjust both of them. The right clutch has hardly any disengagement, so that's not helping us trying to free the stuck clutches. And the left brake is completely out of adjustment. There's a little bit of a right brake to it. So we're going to go ahead and adjust all that, and hopefully after we get enough disengagement we can drive it, hit the brakes, and break those steering clutches free. So let's get at it. To adjust the steering clutches, you got to pull off this plate right here. This one has a PTO engagement lever mounted to the top, so that'll come off, and then this plate comes off and you'll be able to adjust both clutches. See what it looks like in here. A lot of moisture in there. So when you look at the adjustment on these, they're all the way spun in to the adjuster, which if I read my manual correctly, it means that they have a ton of life left in them. Because as your clutch discs wear down, the distance is less, and that will move this adjuster, the arm on the clutch, this way farther, and you have to turn them counterclockwise towards the center of the tractor to basically remove that space, or the lack of space, and will give you more free travel. But I currently have way too much free travel, which looks like this clutch is stuck, and also stuck in the disengaged position, which neither of those are good. So I'm going to mess around with this for a few minutes and see if I can figure out what's going on. I'm going to grease these shafts because the levers, especially this right one, is awful stiff. I don't think it's a clutch lever, I think it's this arm right here. a little bit of heat in there. Hopefully heat it up and let it cool back down, and it'll draw in some of that penetrating oil. With as much condensation that's in that compartment, I'm going to go ahead and pull the drain plugs on them, make sure there's no actual standing water in the compartments. I'm going to put them back in. I believe I'm going to fill those housings up with kerosene and let all this sit for a week or so. Oh, something in there. Get a container. Oh, well that wasn't. Uh-oh. Lots of something in there. Well, housings definitely need washed out, and any water is too much water. Not ideal. Well, I'll let those drip out, and when I get some kerosene, we'll fill them back up and let them soak. So I've kind of cleaned this off and taken a closer look at it, and I believe I was thinking that this right-hand steering clutch was stuck in the disengaged position like this, but after looking it over, it just seems like it's out of adjustment in the wrong direction. So these have a ton of life left in them, and this one over here is adjusted flush to the collar. So if I adjust this one flush to the collar, I believe I should get the same amount of disengagement as this one has. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and see how it feels. That's better. Now we've got clutch disengagement. Go ahead and tighten that back up. There we go. Now we're back to equal disengagements on the levers. Now that both levers for the steering clutches seem to be working properly, I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the brakes on it. To do that, we've got to remove these covers down here on each side, and there's a nut on a brake band that we've got to tighten down. About 8, 7, 6. Yeah, that's about 3 inches before full contact, so that's pretty good. This side over here goes basically completely to the floor, so it's going to need some more adjustment. Luckily these aren't seized up, but it does appear that the housings have quite a bit of buildup in them, so we're going to need to go through the washing procedure on these brakes. Now both brakes are adjusted within a reasonable distance of each other. I'm going to go ahead and drain those compartments too, make sure they don't have any standing oil or water in them. And when I fill up the clutch housings, I'll fill up the brake housings too, and we'll try to flush everything out. These are in a similar location to the clutch housing. These are the drains for the clutch housing, and just to the outside of them are the drains for the brake housings. There's also a bolt here and a nut and a set screw that you use to adjust the brakes, but I'm going to do that after I'm done flushing the housings out. A little bit of water in there too. Yeah, a little oil in that one. Well, I've got some kerosene, so I'm going to go ahead and put the plugs back in the bottom of these compartments and fill them up, and we'll let it soak a few days. This stuff is $6 a gallon, by the way. Got the compartments filled right up. You can see it down here in the brake portion. I'm going to go ahead and put the covers back on it to keep the rain out over the next few days, but I think I'm going to start it up and run it back and forth to make sure those clutches are completely coated and everything rotates. Well, that's some good news. We got the right steering brake loose, but the left is still stuck. I was able to ride the left brake quite a bit, and I was able to get that housing pretty warm. So hopefully between the heat and the kerosene sitting in there, we'll be able to get that clutch loose in a few days to a week. So I'll go ahead and cover this thing up, keep the water out, and we'll come back in a few days. I've had this tank soaking for a couple of days, probably 3 or 4, with the evaporust in it, and you can see there's a couple holes rotted in the top, so that's not great, but we'll see what it looks like inside. I can braze these shut, that's not the end of the world. Still looking pretty crusty in there. Kind of hope it would dissolve it more than that. Yeah, it's still really crusty in there, and it looks like someone put tank liner in. It's the red kind. I think the brand name on that's like Red Coat, but it has grown through the tank liner, and I'm sure it's salvageable, but I'm gonna have to cut it apart and blast the inside out or something like that. This has been sitting here a couple days. I've had the compartment soaking with kerosene, and I've had this left-hand steering clutch tied back. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this thing up and see if we can't break that left-hand clutch free. D7 seems like a good anchor. Go ahead, chain them together and hold the clutch in the release position, and hopefully pulling on this will break that clutch free. Clutch came loose. You could see when I was hitting the main clutch, this right track wasn't turning either. It's slipping, I believe, because the adjustment finally came out correctly and freed up, and it also has kerosene in it, so there's kerosene between the clutch disc and whatever else is mixed in that housing. So we're going to have to flush those out, put some more kerosene in, flush it out again, get all that crud out, and we should be good. But it worked. I'm happy because a lot of the success, immediate success at least, of what I'm going to do with this machine relies on whether or not those steering clutches will come loose, because it's a big job to tear it apart and replace them. So you just seen there, I was trying to turn left and it was stopping all forward motion. I believe that's because the right steering clutch freed up correctly and now it's partly disengaged. So I'm going to bring this thing back around and we'll readjust the clutches and then take it for a little drive. I'm going to go ahead and pull the drain plugs on the rear end of this and drain that kerosene out and see how bad it is. Not nice in there. I'm going to go ahead and take this cover off and readjust the clutches. So our issue is now this clutch, whatever was kind of seized up, freed itself, and now it's currently trying to disengage the clutch while it's fully in the engaged position on the lever. Oh, hey, cool, that freed up though. That was seized to the shaft, to the pin. So that's a plus. There we go, finally got tension off of it. Alright, I've got those adjusted to the point where it shouldn't be disengaged all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and put the plugs back in, fill this compartment back up with kerosene, and we're going to take it for a drive. 1952 Caterpillar D2 lives on. Got the pony engine running, got both the steering clutches free, but there's still a ton of work to do with it. I'm out here playing with it in the dirt just a little bit, but it still has the kerosene around the clutches. I don't want to work it too hard. I haven't serviced the thing yet, but I wanted to get it out here and see what it was doing. Still needs the left brake adjusted. Both the clutches need adjusted a little better, but I'll do that in the future. It'll be in a future video. So I think I'm going to end this video here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one.